Howard Winstone should never have made it as a boxer. Since his teens, he'd been handicapped by a devastating injury. In his private life, he endured severe emotional trials.
What a wonderfully going performance by Winstone, but he's going, he's done!
The odds he faced in life would have overwhelmed most men. But the boy from Merthyr overcame all to become the greatest in the world. Howard Winstone was born in Merthyr in 1939. Merthyr was a tough town, and Howard was sometimes set upon by bullies.
Oh, I had a lot of fights in school, you know, and I had a few idiots. You know, let's be fair, like a fellas who were a bit bigger than me, perhaps. Well, I had to take it then, innit? If I get beat, well, that's it.
His father, who was also named Howard, was a rag-and-bone man. On his daily rounds, Howard Sr. sometimes had to use his fists to fight off thieves who were after his takings.
So my father, he was an awful boy, he said, I'll sort this out, and he bought this set of boxing gloves. And he used to box me every night of the week. He'd spar with me, like, on his knees, like, you know. My father, he never told me I was good. You know, he always said, oh, well, you're not bad, but, you know, I think that pushed me on and on, you know, to get somewhere, like.
At the age of 11, Howard began his formal training. He would spar in this army drill hall, home to Merthyr's amateur boxing club. He showed promise from the start. In his third competitive contest, aged 14, he became Welsh schoolboy champion. But he wasn't a schoolboy for long.
And it's time for me to go to work then when I was 15. My father got me a job in a local factory, like, you know.
Howard started work in the Triang toy factory. It was there that he suffered a horrific injury that looked set to end his boxing career.
How did you lose the fingers?
In a pole press, in the factory.
And you were how old?
16.
The power press came down on Howard's right hand, costing him the tips of 3 fingers.
You must have been horrified.
Oh, I was. Not so bad now, because I say I lived with it, like, innit? But it didn't look so good every young boy 16.
It may have looked like the end of Howard's days in the ring, but it didn't stop him attracting girls. While he was recovering, Howard met local girl Benita Howells.
Well, I met Howard at the dance hall. He had his arm in a sling from an accident with his fingers. I was 14. And, well, got introduced and we danced and, you know, we went steady from then on.
Once Howard's arm came out of the sling, his father was determined to get him boxing again. Here, on a patch of land a few hundred yards from their house, Howard's father had a small holding. He hung up a punch bag and began training Howard to compensate for his injured right hand by developing a strong left jab.
And Howard was on that for months. Left hand, left hand, left hand, left hand. And I wandered through there one day, and I'd just been picked for Wales. I was boxing for Wales, I'd won a few Welsh titles, so I thought I was cock of the walk, like, you know, and his old man said to me, "How around with Howard?" So Mr. Winstone, I said, he'd been out a long time, like, you know, 18 months, and I said, no, I just have around him, he said. And I moved towards Howard, and he wasn't there. He had moved. The next thing I knew was a left jab in my face, you know, right? Then a double left jab, then another left jab. And the more I was going forward, the more I was eating him. And at the end of it, old man Howard said, "What do you think, Don?" And I said, "He's ready, Mr. Winstone." And that's where I think the left hand was born.
Howard was now ready to meet Merthyr's top boxing coach. As a former British and European champion, Eddie Thomas was the latest in a long line of great boxers the town had produced. He'd set up a gym on Penydarren High Street, just a few doors away from Howard's house.
Winstone came here one night and I'd heard a lot about him, but he was more of a fighter than a boxer. But what I had seen, I thought, well, this kid can be moulded. He's got everything, he's got ability, he's got a brain. It's only a matter of making him box.
Thomas taught Howard ringcraft and technique, turning him from a brawler into a boxer.
What were the first things he needed to teach you?
To cool myself down a bit, you know, because I was a bit aggressive, like. Bit of a slugger I was, but he cooled me down in time, like.
So I worked on him, cursed him, kidded him. Gave him about 33 fights in a couple of years, 2 years I think. He beat everything.
Howard was soon a rising star on the amateur boxing circuit. Eddie began preparing him for the greatest amateur contest Wales had ever seen.
Now, the home country, last by tradition.
In 1958, Cardiff hosted the forerunner of the Commonwealth Games, the British Empire Games. Over 100 boxers from 17 different countries came to fight it out that summer. Representing Wales, in the white shorts, was the 19-year-old Howard. He won all his early bouts before facing Australian Ollie Taylor in the final. Howard won Wales's only gold medal of the Games. At Merthyr Station, hundreds turned out to greet him. The town had a new champion, and Howard had a decision to make. His father wanted him to continue as an amateur and qualify for the Olympics. But Howard was now married to Benita and had a young son to support. The following year, having won 83 out of 86 amateur fights, he turned professional.
I needed the money. And I mean, at that time, it was only £60, £40, £50 fights. But I needed the money, like, innit? You know, I was on the dole and all.
To make ends meet, he worked in a local brewery. Then one day, Eddie Thomas called by with big news. Howard had been chosen to contest the British Featherweight title.
And he said, "You can be given the job up." I said, "Why?" And he showed me a letter then saying that the board had nominated me to fight Terry Spinks for the British title.
East End lad Terry Spinks was the boy wonder of London's boxing scene, a British and European champion who was idolised by his fellow Londoners. Howard would be challenging him for the British Featherweight Championship and a purse of over £5,000. This was Howard's shot at the big time. He began a punishing training regime. After a hard day at the brewery, Howard would spend alternate evenings training in the gym and running in the hills above Merthyr. To build up Howard's endurance, Eddie put him up against a tag team of sparring partners.
He wasn't having, say, 3 or 4 hours in one. He was changing them every round, see? But about 5 or 6 hours, I was getting a bit tired and knackered, like, innit? But he would come in fresh every time, wouldn't he? But it paid off.
The fight took place in Wembley in May 1961. Howard's Merthyr fans had made a big day of it.
They ran a train full up from Merthyr. They filled it up with beer and wine before they went from Merthyr. And the time they got to Cardiff, they had to fill up with beer and wine again. And up in Swindon again, they had to fill up again. You know, and it was a great night. Everybody says the best night they ever had was the time I fought Terry Spinks.
Howard came powering out of the right-hand corner.
First round of this 15-round contest for the Featherweight Championship of Great Britain. Terry Spinks, the champion, and Howard Winstone, the challenger from Wales.
What made Howard outstanding in the ring was his classical boxing technique. A combination of speed, footwork and precision punching. Particularly his devastating left jab.
And Winstone again with a clubbing left into the face, and a right. and Spinks is in trouble.
It wasn't long before Howard had the upper hand.
Middle of round 4, and the champion Spinks taking it. Lefts and rights from this boy Winstone, this challenger from Wales. 3 beautiful left hands, flush in the face.
By the 10th round, Spinks was floundering.
And Spinks is bleeding from the nose. And Spinks in trouble on the ropes there. At the end of round 10, Spinks, a very tired champion, goes into his corner there.
Back in his corner, Spinks told his coach, "I'm finished. I can't go on. This kid is too fast for me."
And indeed Winstone has won.
Howard was the new British champion.
And Howard Winstone, unbeaten as a professional, maintains his unbeaten record.
Howard was the first Welshman in 45 years to win the British Featherweight Championship. He rode into Merthyr with a police escort to be greeted by a crowd of thousands.
I'd like to thank the Mayor, the Merthyr Borough Council, and all the people outside for this wonderful welcome. I didn't expect it. Thank you very much.
Within 2 years, Howard had added the European Championship to his titles. He was now a celebrity, and nowhere more so than in Merthyr.
If you walked with Howard down the street of Merthyr and you wanted to get somewhere at 12 o'clock, you had to start off at 10. Because children would stop him, teenage girls would stop him, boxing fans would stop him. You know, he was that well liked.
I like to go downtown, just walk around. That's how I like to be, like, you know. I just class myself as one of the boys, you know.
Success hadn't changed Howard Winstone. He didn't give up his job in Hancock's brewery, and he could still be found down the club sharing a few pints and a game of bingo with the boys, or even doing a turn on the microphone.
Daddy, don't go away again. Daddy, don't go away again.
The people of Merthyr revelled in Howard's success, but their new British and European champion had his eyes on an even bigger prize. As a boy, he'd promised his father he'd someday become featherweight champion of the world. He was now ready for a shot at the title. To win it, he'd have to beat world featherweight champion Vicente Saldivar. Raised in the slums of Mexico City, Saldivar had fought his way out of poverty. He'd won 25 out of 26 professional fights, and 21 of those by knocking out his opponent. As a boxer, he combined phenomenal power and technical finesse. Howard would face him in Earl's Court on the 7th of September, 1965.
This big fight now, that's been our ambition, really. We've just looked forward to this for years.
But Howard's attitude towards his biggest fight was characteristically down to earth.
Everybody is excited, you know, my wife, my mother, you know, all the family. But I can't seem to realize, you know, that there is this big fight coming off. Nothing seems to worry me, you know, a fight that I never get excited over anything. It's my way, like, you know.
"12,000 fans had made the pilgrimage from the valleys of South Wales for the fight.
And Britain hoping to win a world title, the Featherweight Championship of the world, the one title which Britain has failed to win. No Briton has ever won the Featherweight Championship of the world in the history of modern boxing.
Saldivar bombarded Howard with punches. Winston later said, "It wasn't like fighting one man, it was like taking on a gang."
Saldivar comes inside. Now this is what Winston doesn't want to try too often. He doesn't want to go in there mixing it with Saldivar.
Howard resisted, but in the closing round, Saldivar redoubled his efforts. Howard had lasted the distance and now awaited the verdict.
The championship is over and it world champion.
Howard had lost by just a quarter of a point.
Challenge has failed, but it's failed so very, very gallantly.
On his return to Merthyr, Howard had expected the streets to be deserted.
It is my great pleasure and privilege to welcome Howard home again. Unfortunately, he did not win, but he is still champion to us.
In the year that followed, Howard successfully defended his European title 3 times. But there was only one match he truly cared about. In 1967, it was announced that Howard would again challenge Zaldívar for the world title, this time on home ground. Howard and his training team retreated to rural Pembrokeshire, far from the distractions of home, to concentrate on their training program. Trainer Archie Rule took Howard through a routine that was physically and mentally intense.
About this time now, the boys' tension is mounting. Mine is also mounting, you see. So the result is that at this juncture, we are really scared and we don't like each other. And that's what you've got to do. By the end of Wednesday night now, we'll hate the sight of each other.
Benita was only allowed the occasional brief visit to the camp. Like many managers, Eddie Thomas believed that wives were a distraction in the run-up to a fight, and Howard and Benita had spent their wedding anniversary apart.
Are the kids ready?
Hey? Good, isn't it? Good boy. Oh, what are you doing? Oh, hello, isn't it?
Oh, Mrs. Bacon, that's kind of you.
Smashing it?
Oh, thanks very much.
By now, the enforced separation of Howard's training regime was placing a strain on their marriage.
I can't argue too much because, especially when he's training, I've got to sort of curb my tongue and take it in my stride, you know. Of course, like any other couple, we fight over silly little things or quite serious things. But it blows over, you know.
Second, please, Winstone, 13 pounds.
Howard's second fight against Zaldívar took place on the 15th of June, 1967, in Cardiff. By train and coach and car, legions of supporters from Merthyr descended on the capital. The fight would take place outdoors at Ninian Park. With 25,000 fans watching, Howard had the home advantage.
The Mexican world champion, tough and rugged, immensely strong. Winstone, the superb boxing master. Brilliant exponent of the straight left.
Howard put on a show for the crowd that night, boxing with grace and style, slipping his left jab past Zaldívar's defences.
We're now seeing the real pattern of this emerging, which is the left hand of Winstone and the boxing ability against the sheer strength and aggression of the Mexican.
Zaldívar hit back, but Winstone outboxed him, dancing out of the way.
2 good punches from Winstone. I honestly think Winstone is fighting better in this fight than he did in the first one with Zaldívar.
Then, in the 14th, it looked as if Zaldívar might stage another last-minute comeback.
What a wonderfully game performance by Winstone, but he's going, he's down!
Oh, he was hurt, but I had this feeling I got to get up, like. I said, one more round to go and I'll be champion, which I genuinely thought he would have been. But when I came back to the 15th, I was as strong as, well, I was pretty good, I was moving like a good head. A little grey on again.
And And he's giving as good as he gets in the last round. He really is.
Howard's recovery in the final round was astounding. The contest was a close call, but most ringside experts were confident that Howard had the edge.
And there's the bell. A wonderful World Championship fight. And Saldivar is the winner. And Saldivar has retained his World Championship on points over 15 rounds in a fight that was remarkably similar to their first, with the Mexican so strong in the closing stages.
How did you put up the fight of your life tonight?
Thank you.
I think you fought a lot better this time than you did the first time against him.
Oh, I trained hard for this one. I felt real good.
But I think in the fight itself, you fought so much better, I felt. You were sharper.
Well, we all thought we'd won it, like, you know. That's where it goes.
You felt yourself you'd won it?
Oh, yeah. I done enough early on, I think, to win it easy.
In public, Howard was philosophical about his defeat.
He said to many people, it's all right, like Howard was, the nice guy. It doesn't bother me, you know, so and so. It did bother him. I knew it did bother him. When he was on his own or we were on our own, he'd say, why didn't I have the verdict that night?
Howard would get one more chance to prove himself against Saldivar. Manager Eddie Thomas arranged a rematch in Mexico City 4 months later. On the eve of the fight, Howard and Benita had a blazing row. It was then that Howard discovered Benita had been having an affair. She was determined to leave him. The following day, Howard took an almighty beating from Saldivar. In the 12th round of the fight, he went down. When he refused to stay down, Eddie Thomas threw in the towel. After they'd returned to Wales, Benita moved out, leaving the children in Howard's care. Their marriage was over. But in this dark hour, there was one ray of hope for Howard. Having won, Saldivar announced his retirement from boxing. The world featherweight title was suddenly vacant. The huge physical demands of professional boxing had taken their toll on Howard. Now nearing 30, he was past his prime.
And I'd had a lot of trouble and all, and I was putting a bit of weight on, you know. I was getting older now, man. I was going 29 now. But I just wanted to win the title, see?
To win it, he would have to beat a much younger man, Mitsunori Seki of Japan. This fight in 1968 would be Howard's last chance at the world title.
And so Howard Winstone, amid scenes that haven't been heard at the Royal Albert Hall for years, these thousands of Welshmen cheering him on, making now his 4th attempt to win this world title against the southpaw Japanese, Mitsunori Seki.
For the first few rounds, Winstone and Seki tested each other's defenses.
Beautiful left-handed. Seki walked right onto it. This is easily the best round Winstone has had so far.
Then, in the 5th round, Howard began to exploit his opponent's weaknesses.
Beautiful right underneath, and Winstone is right on top in the 5th.
By the 9th, Seki was in trouble.
And Roland Dakin's going to have a look at that right eye. He's having a good close look at it. It's right up underneath the eyebrow, and he's going to stop it, I think. And Winstone is champion of the world at last, and is the first Welsh world champion for 45 years, and you won't stop the Welsh invading this ring now. Tell us how you feel at this moment.
Oh, terrific, terrific. I wanted my boys here. I wanted my boys here, and I told my father. My father started me off, and I said I'd win it. And out of all my troubles, I've stuck to my word, and I've done it, and I'm proud.
The next day, the whole of Merthyr came out to welcome their champion home. And it wasn't just Merthyr that was celebrating. 250 telegrams came flooding in from all corners of the world. In the days that followed, Howard received 15 proposals of marriage from women all over Britain. This was the pinnacle of his career. But Howard's reign as world champion would be brief. 6 months later, he was challenged for the title by Jose Legra at Porthcawl. In the opening round, Legra landed a decisive punch that closed Howard's eye.
That's a good right hand, and he's hurt Winstone. With less than a minute of the world fight.
Though half blind, Howard soldiered on.
And really, he's got no defence, he's got no footwork.
In the 5th round, the referee stopped the fight.
A sad night so far for Wales and for Winstone here at Porthcawl. The crowd completely silent. I would have thought that, you know, a couple of years ago, you wouldn't have been caught with a punch like that.
Yeah, it's true. A lot of people said this, you know. Past his old age, I don't know.
Well, I think, personally, that you've slowed down a bit, and you get caught now with punches that you wouldn't have been caught with.
Oh, I know that. I realise that, you know.
Does this worry you at all?
Well, not really, and I haven't decided on my future yet. I want a few weeks to think it over, you know.
You knew what I was coming to when I said this, because
yes,
obviously this is the question we all want to know. Are you going to carry on?
Well, I don't know. I'm going away for holiday on Saturday, and 2 weeks in Jersey. I can whoop it up there, and I'll think it over then, you know.
Having thought it over, Howard decided to retire at the age of 29. A year later, he married childhood friend Bronwyn Williams. Together, they had a son named Howard Jr. Boxing had been Howard's whole world, but now he had to make a new life for himself outside the ring. For a few years, he ran a cafe in Merthyr bus station. He eventually sold it to buy a pub in Aberdare. But Howard was no businessman. He let the business slide and in 1978 gave up the pub to return to Merthyr. There he worked as a night watchman and hospital porter. In his later years, Howard was plagued by ill health. On the 30th of September 2000, Howard Winstone died of kidney disease. He was aged just 61. On the day of his funeral, the whole of Merthyr turned out to honor the man who'd won 61 out of 67 professional fights, had held the British and European titles, and had become the first British boxer to win the World Featherweight Championship. Howard Winstone was always modest about his achievements, but his hometown has never forgotten him. In 2005, he was voted the greatest citizen of Merthyr Tydfil.